What's up, guys? It is That Pin again. I'm here again with another video, and today we're looking at the new hero, Warden. I do have a lot to say on this hero, but let's get into it and let's just start talking about him. So to start off, he is a top commander hero. I am pretty excited in some ways, right? I do think that this hero can be very valuable on field. I'm not really as sure about Garrison. I think there's potential there, but I am probably going to wait until I see how he actually performs there before I really give a complete say on it. I mean, obviously a lot of his skills are kind of tied down to field, and then a lot of his skills are tied down to Garrison, which make him really restrictive, which makes him just feel super weird. His skills mechanics are super wonky, so I can't really say too much. I will just jump into his super weapon though, and we'll just talk through there. I do think that this hero has extreme use on the field though, although I will say one thing that ties it is going to be a super weapon. So for the average player, accessing some of these insane skills that he's going to have is not going to be possible. So it is kind of like a, whale thing, but at the same time, I mean, it will just kind of show you how impressive he is as an overall hero and the potential he has, especially when paired right. Because I do think like if you pair him with a lean, there is some insane potential here. But I will talk about that when I get to the second skill. But to start off, let's get to his first skill. Or actually, we're going to start off with his super weapon, and then we're going to go into his first skill, and we're going to go from there. So his super weapon increases the infantry squad damage by up to 10% if you max out his super weapon, and basically from here, for every 15% of your squad size loss, it increases your infantry squad attack by 5%. I'm just going to read it as if you're maxed out super weapon by 5%, and gain a 5% shield bonus. This effect stacks up to 6 times. So this is kind of a nice addition. I will say if you're using this on Garrison or something, I would hope that you're not having to get to the point where you're using this, just for the fact that your squad size is getting lower. But as your squad size is getting weaker, I guess your buffs are getting stronger. So there's not really a thing to complain about here. Infantry squad damage increasing by 10%, pretty good stat. So to get into his first skill, and we're going to go from looking at it transcended, and we're going to go from looking at it normal. So I'm going to do this after I go through each skill. I'm going to look at it as if it's transcended. So his first skill, basically he deals damage to the target, the damage factor going up to 14,000, and when not garrisoned or in a rally, this damage is increased with the reduction of your own squad size, up to the maximum of 25%. So I do want to note here that one, this is required not to be in a garrison or rally for this second half of the skill to be effective. Not to mention, I do want to say it's quite vague because it doesn't exactly give you a specific number. Like for example, for every 1% of your squad size dropped, is that when your damage is increasing by 1%, or do you increase your damage by 2% for every 1% of your squad that drops, right? It's pretty vague in that sense, so we can't really say how effective this skill is going to be because it just doesn't tell you, but it does seem a little bit interesting. Nonetheless, 14,000 skill damage factor, not bad. And we'll go into his actual transcended skill. So when transcended, this goes from 14,000 damage factor to 15.3 thousand. This skill all remains the same right here. We're not garrison or in a rally, And then there's this second kind of half of the second half of the skill. Also, when squad size is below 50%, you gain a shield for 3 seconds based on 20% of this damage dealt. This is pretty interesting, but I do want to note, I don't really know because there's a period here, right? So you would assume this is going to be separate and this is going to be non-tied down to anything, but at the same time it says also, right, as an addition onto this second part or this first part of the skill, right? So I don't really know if this is added on that you have to be on the field, or if this is a potential garrison and rally skill that you can kind of utilize. I don't really know. It's kind of usually when there's a period, it's kind of separated, but since it says also, I've never seen them actually use this word when kind of referring to a skill, so I can't really say. This is actually a really weird one for me, but I do think that this little part of the skill is kind of interesting. So when also your squad size is below 50%, you gain a shield for 3 seconds based on 20% of your damage dealt. Just kind of interesting. It's a new mechanic that we haven't really seen, so I can't hate on it. I guess we'll see, right? So the second skill, basically when garrison increases your skill damage by up to 30%. This is a pretty nice one, especially if you just want to run them on towers. You don't even need to transcend this skill to make this kind of useful if you're not really going to be field fighting with it and you're just using it on garrison. But I will say the transcended skill is extremely useful, especially if you're a field warrior, which we'll get into in a second. And your damage dealt to rider squads is increased by up to 5% here. This is all tied down to being a garrison hero. When you do transcend the hero, though, this goes from being garrison specific to being non-specific, and you get an additional 5% on the skill damage increase, which is insane, especially when you consider something like a lean volt, which I find to be the kind of crazy, because when you fully awaken her damage factor on the main hero is 14.5k, right? And unlike something like Miyamoto, for example, who I want to say, has a fan-shaped AoE. So if you're not hitting all those targets within your fan shape, whereas Aline has what I would assume is a circular shaped AoE, which is normally what happens when they don't give you a specific kind of AoE type, right? Like Bianca, for example, Claude, whatever the case. I do think like this is going to be kind of cool. Also want to mention that there's no drop off on her damage, so this 8.5k should be going to both targets, meaning that this is a total of 17,000 damage factor on just 2 other targets plus the 14.5k, which is kind of crazy when you also consider that there is a 35% skill damage increase right here. Just kind of crazy to really think about. I just wanted to mention that if you pair these two together, I can see this being an insane damage combo. But transcending the skill does make it non-specific, which is really nice. And when garrisoned, it increases the damage dealt to rider squads by 5%. So this second half of the skill does stay, garrison specific. So that doesn't change at all. To continue from there, though, we will go into his third skill. Just wanted to say that second skill was so nasty with a transcendence on it. When not garrisoned or in a rally, it increases the infantry squad attack by up to 40%. So this is when you're not garrisoned or rally, you get the 40% attack. And when garrisoned, this is kind of interesting, by the way, because I do want to say this is so not a rally hero. They have so many skills, like even here, right? When garrisoned, it doesn't say when garrisoned and rallied, right? When garrisoned and in a rally. It just says when garrisoned, increases your skill damage. This one also says when not in a garrison or rally, but then when you reach the second half of the skill, when garrisoned. It doesn't say when rallying, right? So this is literally trying to turn you off from being a rally hero so much, because basically every skill is useless as a rally hero. At least some of these are useful as a garrison. This one's just absolutely not useful at all, right? In rallies. I mean, obviously in this case, right, this becomes skill damage basic, right? So it's not tied down to anything, but it's kind of interesting how pre-transcended a lot of these skills are just completely useless outside of towers or whatever the case. But basically, second half of the skill goes from when garrison increases your infantry squad HP by 30%. So you're kind of picking and choosing, right? If you're field fighting with him, you're getting the 40% attack. If you're garrisoning with him, you're getting the 30% HP here. When taking skill damage, gains a shield. The shield factor going up to 2,000 for 3 seconds. This effect can be triggered up to 1 time every 6 seconds. Don't really have anything to say about this one. Kind of decent skill. Do like the HP at least, being a garrison skill. Makes him less of a glass cannon on garrison, whereas I feel like this hero is kind of being I don't know, in a lot of ways he's being designed as a kind of just glass cannon hero. I mean, it's kind of the same as Aline, if you ask me, right? I mean, he does have shield factor type skills, right? Even his transcended one right here, where you gain a shield for 3 seconds based on the 20% of his overall damage dealt. Just found this kind of interesting. But yeah, we'll go into his transcended skill for his third one now. When not garrisoned or in a rally, increase your own infantry squad attack by 50%. So this goes from what, 40% to 50%, and then this 30%, right? So when garrison, increase your infantry squad HP by 30%, goes up to 35%, and basically the skill, when taking skill damage, gains a shield. The shield factor goes from 2,000 to 2,500. Honestly, it's not an insane increase. For a transcendence, this is probably the worst skill on his set, if I'm going to be honest. It's still pretty solid, right? You get additional 10% on the field, you get additional 5% HP on towers, but it is kind of something to note that the increase on this transcended skill is probably the worst of all of these skills that you're going to get here. But let's keep going. So its fourth skill increases infantry squad attack by up to 20% here. And then the second part, when not garrisoned or in a rally, Warden gains a shield. The shield factor going up to 6,000 for 3 seconds for every 2 rage skills he uses. So this is pretty interesting. You get a just basic 20% attack, and then this is only useful in the field. So when not garrisoned or in a rally, you gain the shield, but for every 2 rage skills you use, right? So you're not going to be proccing this every single rage drop. honestly, I don't know how I feel about this skill. I don't really like this skill, right? Not until it's transcended, and I'll tell you why, right? I just don't like that it's proccing every two. I mean, maybe I'm just being a little greedy here. I mean, I know you're getting 20% attack here, but it just doesn't feel like a lot. I mean, I guess when you add this on, but I don't know. I'm not a fan. Maybe I'm just overlooking it. Tell me in the comments if maybe I'm just kind of being being weirdly biased. I don't know. But basically, when you transcend this, it goes from 20%, right, to the 25%, increases infantry squad attack by 25%, and this goes when not garrison or in a rally. It increases Boyd Warden's rage recovery speed by 30%. That is insane, guys. Increasing his rage recovery speed by 30%. This transcendence skill is probably the second best. I would go for the second skill, right? As just an average player, especially if I'm not like a, maybe a rally. Well, even if you're a rally, I don't know. I don't really care for this extra damage factor personally. I think this increase on skill damage by 35% is more valuable, and I think this rage recovery speed is probably the next best valuable to me. So I'd probably go for the second skill, the fourth skill, and then I'd go for the first skill personally. But yeah, 30% recovery speed and gains a shield. The shield factor going from 6,000 to 7,000 for 3 seconds for every 2 rage skills he uses. This is insane though. The 30% rage recovery speed. That alone makes me get like have a wet dream about this hero. You know what I mean? But as far as transcending goes, that's amazing, right? For field fighting, obviously, because you can't use this in garrison or rally. So this skill isn't useful really to transcend for a garrison hero all that much. So besides the extra 5% attack here, and even the second, like the shield factor, right, is only useful in the field. So I mean, only this 5% is actually impacted on the garrison. So if you're a garrison main, I know Z is gonna hate this video, right? But if you're a garrison main, it is not useful at all. You get 5% attack for transcending this, right? Just nothing here. And finally, we move on to the Awaken skill. So the Awaken skill, it's a new skill, right? It's not an addition onto something. Sometimes you see where it's an improvement, right? For like example, this one, it just improves the first skill. This one is a new skill. You get 20% of shield's absorption is converted to damage and deflected into Boyd Warden's target. Yeah, basically after transcending it though, it goes from the 20% to 25. But 20% of shield's absorption is converted to damage and deflected into Boyd Warden's current target. Not bad. Which is actually a little bit better, I guess. It's a little bit better when you consider the shield factor, right? I kind of was overlooking that, but even then, I don't really like that it's every 2 rage skills. I still don't like it, okay? But I do think that this 20% shield damage absorb, it's deflected, so I guess you're dealing the damage back. And then 25%, if you transcend it, is absorbed, is converted to damage and deflected onto Boyd Warden's current enemy target. And when the shield is lost, it reduces the damage taken by infantry squads by 12% for 3 seconds. So not really bad. It's not really bad at all. I kind of like this hero field wise. Garrison, I don't really know if I'd use him. I'm still kind of skeptical on him. He's like really odd. His mechanics are really odd. I can't really say. I'm still skeptical. You guys give me your thoughts in the comments. I did want to just cover him. I find the second skill and third skill transcended to be absolutely insane, man. But untranscended, I'm not really sure how impressive he is. I don't really think it's too crazy. I think the transcendence alone is what makes him all insane. Outside of that, it's super weird because of how many mechanics are like tied behind garrison, and then how much of his mechanics are tied behind being on the field. And I mean, I know most people who get him are probably going to use him on the field, right? Because most people aren't garrison or rally captains in this game. It's just like the leader, there are specific leaders for that, but overall, I don't know. You guys let me know what you guys think about this hero, though. You guys give me your thoughts. I am interested in your opinion on this one. But yeah, I do appreciate you guys for watching as always. I do hope you guys enjoyed me covering this hero and talking about it. And I hope you guys have a great day or night, though. And I will see you guys in the next video. That is about it. And peace out.